Welcome to The Explainer. I am so thrilled to have you here today because we're going to unpack something we've literally all experienced, but, very few of us actually understand. We are going to look at the absolutely fascinating, almost unbelievable disconnect between objective time, like the actual ticking of a clock, and our physical, internal experience of it. I mean, have you ever felt like a single minute stretched into an eternity, or that an hour just vanished in a blink? Well, today we're going to show you exactly why that happens, and more importantly, how you can take control of it.
It's an age-old question, isn't it? Why does time fly when you're having fun? We've all said it, we've all heard it. We basically treat it like a cute little cliche or a trick of the mind. But what if I told you it's not just a figure of speech? No way. It is a highly specific biological mechanism. Your perception of time is entirely dictated by your nervous system.
Let's see how this builds in a real-world scenario. Imagine you're sitting in a sauna. The heat is just blasting. If you're in there all alone, you might stare at the sand clock on the wall and literally swear it has stopped moving. 2 minutes feels like a grueling 10 minutes. You check the clock, you check it again, and time is just dragging. But take that exact same sauna, the exact same heat, the exact same sand clock, and add a friend to the room. You start talking, getting deep into a conversation about absolutely nothing, and suddenly you look over and the sand is completely gone. The time vanished. Nothing about the physical room changed. The heat didn't change. So what on earth did?
Let's move into section 1, the neuroscience, 2 brain clocks.
Okay, let's really dive into this, because this is where the mystery gets solved. To figure out our sauna paradox, we have to look at the research of scientist Mark Wittmann. He discovered your brain doesn't just have one master clock. It actually runs 2 completely distinct timekeeping systems that do not talk to each other. The first is what we call the pacemaker, and this system is driven by stress and discomfort. When you're stressed or hot or uncomfortable, this pacemaker just revs up. It ticks faster, making the outside world feel like it's dragging in slow motion. But the second clock? It isn't really a clock at all. It's called interoception. It is driven entirely by your internal bodily signals. And when your attention is completely consumed by how hot your skin is or how fast your heart is beating, your perception of actual time just totally collapses. Let's define that second clock a bit more, because it's honestly a massive revelation. Interoception is basically your body's running tally of itself. It's the internal radar monitoring your heartbeat, your temperature, your muscle tension. When you're sitting alone in that hot sauna, your interoceptive system is screaming. Your attention gets completely tied up in listening to your body complain about the heat. And because your brain's bandwidth is entirely occupied by monitoring your own discomfort, there is simply no attention left over to notice the actual time passing. You aren't watching the clock slow down. You are just way too busy listening to yourself to watch it at all. All right, section 2, 1 job versus 2 jobs. So why do we feel so incredibly trapped when we're alone with discomfort, but completely free when we're distracted? It all comes down to job allocation. There's this incredibly revealing quote from our source material. I used to think the dragging, clock-checking version of me was just impatient. Wrong. My nervous system was doing the one job available to it. I want you to really take that in for a second. How many times have you blamed yourself for being impatient or weak or unable to handle a tough workout or a long wait? It is not a moral failing. Your nervous system wasn't failing. It was just doing the literally only job you gave it, monitoring the discomfort. Let's look at the contrast here. When you're alone in the heat, your nervous system has one job: monitor the discomfort. That's the whole shift. No wonder time drags, right? It's the only thing happening. But throw a friend into the room, suddenly your nervous system has 2 jobs: monitor the heat and process a conversation. And here is the absolute magic of it. Your nervous system will pick the better job almost instantly. It outsources your attention away from your skin and onto the words being spoken. The heat doesn't disappear, it just stops being the main event. So the absolutely crucial point here is that researchers actually tested this core concept. Heat on its own barely moves the needle on your perception of time. It is the heat, combined with having absolutely nothing else to think about, that causes time to maliciously distort and drag. It is the empty mind that makes the minutes feel like hours. Which leads us to section 3, the borrowed attention trick. Now that we know exactly how our nervous system hijacks our perception of time, let's look at an actionable protocol. Let's move from the theory into a highly actionable, somatic protocol you can use anywhere. I call it the borrowed attention trick. Here's a 4-step framework for surviving any uncomfortable wait, a grueling workout, or, a stressful commute. Step 1. Notice the narrating.
Step 2, find an outside focus. Step 3, go all in. And step 4, don't check the clock. Let's break down exactly how you execute this. So, steps 1 and 2 are all about catching your brain in the act. First, you have to notice that you're doing the thing. You have to catch yourself staring at the clock, or internally narrating how hot you are, or how much your legs hurt on the treadmill. Once you catch that internal complaining, you immediately find one real thing outside of your own head to land your attention on. It could be a specific sound in the room, it could be watching a person. Ideally, it's engaging in an actual conversation if one is available. You are deliberately giving your interoceptive clock an external anchor. And here are steps 3 and 4, which are honestly where the real work happens. You must go all in on that external thing. You can't just pretend to listen to a podcast while actually thinking about how hot the sauna is. You can't use the distraction as a cheap trick to survive the discomfort, because your nervous system is way too smart for that. You have to genuinely engage with it, because it is more interesting than your own sweat. And finally, and yeah, this is for sure the hardest part, do not check the clock again. Let the clock check in on you when the time is actually up. If you look back at the clock, you lock your attention right back onto the discomfort. I want to leave you with this incredibly powerful quote from our source material. Give your attention somewhere better to go, and your nervous system takes the upgrade every time. Your nervous system doesn't want to suffer. It doesn't want to count the agonizing seconds. It is simply waiting for you to provide a better alternative. The moment you give it one, it drops the discomfort like it never even mattered. Which brings us to our final thought. We've just proven that something as rigid and absolute as time can be completely bent and reshaped just by shifting your attention. So I have to ask, if your perception of time is just a matter of where you place your attention, what else in your life is waiting for a nervous system upgrade? What other discomforts, stresses, or dragging moments are you suffering through simply because you haven't given your nervous system a better job to do? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Start paying attention to where your attention goes, and I promise you, you're going to start getting your time back.